Hi, everybody. Welcome to the forum. Hello, Alice. Lovely to see you again. It's been a while.
It
How are
has,
you
it has.
doing? How are you doing, my love?
Pretty good. Yeah. Have a nice warm bowl of soup with me.
We need it. It's
Cold.
about 1 degree up here in the northeast of England. I don't know what it's like where you are, but yeah, it's
Similar in
it's getting cold.
Belfast.
Having said that, I do feel like such a Brit when I say, "Oh, it's getting close to zero," and then I've got friends in Canada and they're just laughing at me. They're going, "Zero? That's nothing. That's a normal day in Canada."
That's
So,
t-shirt
hi
weather,
guys.
that is.
I'm in Canada. I know what it is. We
There
have
we go. I'm
snow.
laughing for it to start going, "Oh, it's close to zero here." Thinking, what? That's just normal for us. So yeah, we
I'm just
Brits,
gonna
I think we
step
just
have
feel.
to step out for a sec. I've got to put the garbage out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, not a problem. Just come back in. That's absolutely fine, guy. All right, then. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. But before we get started, I'm just going to wait for another minute to see who else is going to join us. If you'd just like to go into the chat and put in what you'd like to gain from today's session. So today, hello, Christina. Lovely to see you. I'd love to see you as well, Robin, of course. We've got to stop meeting like this, Robin. People are going to talk. We see each other so
Oh.
much. No, I love it. But yeah, just go into chat and put in what you'd like to gain for today's session. Today we're talking about, hello Stanley. We're talking about how specific ways that my authors have got media attention. So it's not really theory, because I think there's a lot of theory out there. I'd much rather tell you the things that have actually worked for my authors and for me, because I'm an author as well. What's worked for me in getting myself into the media. So if there's anything that you want to get from this, do put this into the chat, because it just means that I can make sure everybody walks away getting what they need from today's session, because I do try and cover everything, but I'm not a mind reader, so I can't. You may have a specific question or a specific idea that I don't cover in my presentation, and I don't want you to walk away from today saying, "Oh, I wish I asked her this," or "I really would have wanted to learn more about that." Put that into the chat now, and it just means that I can make sure that everybody gets what they need. Okay, I've got 3 note takers. You know what is really weird when you get note takers that turn up, but the human being hasn't turned up with them, and you're kind of going, I don't mind note takers coming in, but please bring a human in with you, because otherwise it's just weird. So they can sit in the waiting room unless a human being decides to turn up. Okay, so let's get started. So let me just, where is my share screen button? There it is. Okay. So can you all see my slides? Yes, excellent. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first of all, welcome to the Thought Leader Author Forum. Most of you have been here before. We've got 1 or 2 people where it's their first time, but welcome. So for those who don't know, the forum is in 2 parts. We have 45 minutes together, or just under 45 minutes together now, and it's in 2 phases. First of all, we discuss the topic of the day. So today, we're talking about how authors use their books to get media attention. I know we've got a couple of existing authors inside this forum today, so I know that you guys are itching to find out how you get your book into the media, how you get you into the media as well. So that's what we're going to discuss. And then part 2, my favorite bit, there's a reason why I created this weekly forum. I think on a weekly basis, I would do at least 1 workshop or masterclass for other groups around the world. I will do on Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. I'm not traveling around everywhere. But I will do a workshop or a masterclass for various groups around the world. And I love doing them. Don't get me wrong. I love teaching people how to write books, how to leverage books. But you do get tired of your own voice after a while, because you're just talking and talking. And the reason I created my own weekly forum is that it's a forum. It's not just a web class or a master class. It's like forum. In other words, you get the most out of it when you participate. So part 2 is my favorite bit. That's when I go a little bit quiet and I want to hear from you. So if you've actually gained media attention in the past, tell me how you felt about it. What was good? What was bad? Tell me about your experiences and learn from each other. I'm always amazed sometimes in the forums where people learn from each other inside the forum. So do get stuck in, because that's where you can actually get the most out of this forum. And also to thank you for coming to today's session. you will get this workbook sent out by my awesome assistant, Joycey, who should be in the room somewhere. She usually sends us out mid-morning or early afternoon UK time, so it'll be very early for you guys in Canada, or if you're in the US. But we'll get this to you. It just means that if you want to take notes, you can do, but you don't have to. Everything that I cover will be covered in this workbook that you'll get sent to you tomorrow, and also a lot more that I'm not able to cover because I only have a finite amount of time here. And also to thank you for coming to today's forum live. I always like rewarding people who come live. I have easily some in the region of 80 or 90 people who follow this forum regularly, but they don't come live. Now, I'm not blaming them because they're probably going to watch this replay now and go, hang on a minute, it's not my fault. It's because of your time zone. And so absolutely, oh, I've got a couple of other people. No, it's just the note takers. I've got, they'll say it's time. So I completely appreciate that. Trying to work out everyone's time zone, it just doesn't work. However, it is nice when people come live, because otherwise it's just me talking to myself, and that's pretty boring. So I like rewarding people who actually turn up live to these forums rather than just wait for the replay to come out. So therefore, to thank you, what I'd love for you to do is pick one of these amazing causes, and we will donate on your behalf to one of these causes. Costs you nothing, by the way. You just pick a cause and we'll make that donation on your behalf, and then you can go away feeling really smug because you've done your good deed for the day. So actually, let me put this into the chat now, and then while I'm speaking, you guys can do that. So where are we? There we go. So let me put this into the chat now. There we go. So just click on that link, pick one of these causes. That's probably the most difficult thing you'll do because they're all amazing. It's like, oh, how do I pick one? Pick one and we will make the donation on your behalf. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I surveyed my audience on LinkedIn earlier this week, and I asked them, have you ever gained media attention for your business, cause, or mission? Let me know details in the comments. And what's really, I love this, 55% yes, several times, not even once, several times. 32% said yes once, and only 14% said no. I love this because sometimes I do worry. We live in such an internet world now that I do wonder, do people maybe not see the point of getting into the media anymore? So that's interesting. I also love to know, I would say my audience range from older millennials up to, I would say, boomers. If I had a younger audience, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Would this be a more skewed poll? Would there be a lot more people saying no rather than yes? That's interesting. So definitely for my audience, the wonderful thing is more than half have got media attention several times, which shows me that it's something that most business owners still feel is worth it and important for building their brand and their visibility. Just some of the comments I received. So I've got, oh, let me just move this around so I can actually see. So we got Mark says, I've been lucky to get a decent amount of press, both regionally and nationally, business-wise, and internationally for my music. The one time I got on a magazine cover, and even if only a niche one, is framed on the wall for keeps. That's the difference, isn't it? It really, that made me smile. You know, you didn't even need to put that emoji at the end. That made me smile when I read it, because I thought that's the truth. There's something, I think the more we get into this internet world where everything is ones and O's and it's digital, the more we actually value things that are tangible, you know? So actually being in a magazine and actually having a physical copy, that is different, isn't it? You could have been on so many YouTube channels and podcasts, but there's something about being in a physical magazine that you still go, wow, that's pretty awesome. And I think a lot of people feel this way, and I do think the more digital we get, the more we value things that are tangible. We've got Fitz who says, yes, and it was a game changer. Media attention not only amplifies your message, but also builds credibility and opens doors to new opportunities. It's all about leveraging the moment to connect with the right audience. Couldn't have said it better myself, really. Steve says, this is a powerful and often free way to spread the word. I think I know what Steve meant. I would counter the free. One thing I've owned a business in some form or another since 2013. One thing I've learned about business is there's no such thing as free. If you're not paying in money, you're paying in time and effort. So you're still paying, which ultimately in business equals money anyway. Time and effort equals money, because that's time you could have spent elsewhere doing something else. So I counter the fact whether it's free, but I think I know what Steve is trying to say. We live in a world where we're just bombarded with adverts. Okay, most of it we don't even notice anymore. Our brain just filters it out before we even become consciously aware of it. When you have something that is a feature, it's not an advert, but a feature, someone has written something about you or interviewed you, people do take more attention. It feels like it's not an advert. It feels like somebody else is saying, yes, you're really good at what you do, or yes, you have an important story that people should know. And that rings true for a lot of people. People don't pay attention to adverts much anymore, but they really do pay attention to a feature or something that somebody else is saying, yes, this is a person that you need to listen to. So I think that's what Steve was meaning, because yeah, there is no such thing as free. Just be aware, if you want to get media attention, there are two paths. You can pay for it, pay for adverts. You can take out a full page spread in a magazine if you wanted. You're just going to pay handsomely for it. Or you can use the techniques I'm going to show you today, some of the things that my authors have done to get them into the media, but you're putting time and effort in building that media presence. So yes, it's not free. I hope that makes sense. There's no such thing as free. You're either paying money or you're paying time and energy. But I do feel that for this time, the free version, free in inverted commas, is better because people pay attention to features more than they do to adverts. So this is something that I created a while ago, 3 or so years ago, speaking to a lot of my clients, like kind of figuring out how they managed to get into the media. We've had some of our clients have ended up on TV, they've ended up in broadsheet papers, they've ended up on some major podcasts, on YouTube channels. So I've been kind of tracking what my clients have been doing and how they've been doing it. And I put this together in this little infographic, because otherwise, if you're anything like me, and more likely you are like me than you're not, it's very difficult to remember good advice. I get so many people giving me great advice. Do I actually retain much of it? No, unfortunately. It goes in one ear and by the next day it's already gone out. And the thing with good advice is it's not really good if you don't take any action on it. People can give you the numbers for next week's lottery, but if you don't actually go and play the game, there's no chance of you winning the money. So it's the same thing here. Advice is only good if you action it, which is why I learned a long time ago, if I can create these little infographics with mnemonics, acronyms, that sort of thing, it helps me remember. And the one I found is most people have a same brain like I do as well. So it helps other people too. So this is something that I create to help me when it comes to trying to get media attention for my business, for my brand, for my book as an author, and something that I hope you can take on as well. So as you can see, it's Media Machine. And that's what you want to create. I want you to think of creating this machine that does take a bit of effort to put together in the beginning. But once you got all of the cogs turning, it starts to work for itself. And that's what seems to happen with a lot of my clients, and certainly happens for me as well now. Now, as you can see, machine is an acronym, and we're going to go through MACHINE, but hopefully you'll be able to remember this now because it's in an acronym. So step one, or the first M, I should say, the first letter of machine, is become me focused. Now, this is really, really important. We live in a world now where we have so many channels, it's actually bewildering. Okay, I'm showing my age here, but I remember a time when we had 3 TV channels. And that was it. We had about, gosh, I'm trying to think how many radio stations we had. I think we maybe had 10 or 11. Well, radio, there's Radio 1, Radio 2. I think there might have been Radio 3, but I'm not entirely sure. There was about 3 or 4 commercial radio stations. That was about it. That's all the radios. Now there's literally thousands just in the UK. Then bearing in mind, because we live in a global world, if you then take on all the channels that you can now receive around the world, I mean, I actually don't know how many radio channels there are. I don't know how many TV channels there are. It's crazy. And that's just what I call traditional media. Okay. Newspapers. When I was growing up, there was, I think, about 3 tabloids, about 3 broadsheets, or maybe 4 broadsheets. And then we had, I do remember the Gateshead Post. So our local paper in Gateshead. And then we had a regional paper, the Chronicle. That was it. So basically about 10 papers in my life. Now, even papers or magazines, there's so many. it's bewildering. So something that a lot of my clients have been guilty of is just be like, oh my God, I need to reach out to all of these people. And what they end up doing is creating some kind of, I guess, like an email that they just blast out to as many public as possible. And then they're coming to me and they say, I sent out 500 emails and I didn't get one person that replied back. That's the kind of scattergun approach, throw as much mud at a wall and see if something sticks. Sadly, sometimes not much sticks. Instead, focus on you, become me focused. So think about if you're in a specific sector or in a specific industry, you probably have magazines, periodicals, kind of brochures that come out in your industry that you read to stay on top of your industry, to stay on top of maybe new technology that's coming into your sector or whatever it is. If you already read those, it just kind of makes sense to approach those people. Think of the podcasts that you listen to. Ooh. Michael, I'm just going to put you on mute if that's okay, my love. I don't want to get any sudden jump scares and I fall off my treadmill. That's the last thing everybody wants to see.
Don't want that to happen.
Thank you. So yeah, think of the things that you read. Okay. So first of all, regarding your industry, what do you read? What do you listen to? What do you watch? Are there any specific YouTube channels that you follow to stay on top of your industry? Look at that. Outside of your industry, look at the things that you listen to or watch for fun and see if there is something that in your book, or I talk about books because I'm a publisher, but to be honest, even if you don't have a book, think about your business, think about your brand or your nonprofit. What is it about it that can relate to the readership or the viewership of something else? But focus on you. That's the first advice I give to all my clients when they're wanting to get out there. Stop doing the whole people do is Google. It really is your friend, but it can also be your enemy. I think what some people do is they just go on Google and just go, okay, I want to find TV channels. And then they're suddenly given, wow, there's 1,000 TV channels. So they go, okay, I need to blast out an email to all of these TV channels. No, you don't. I used to work as a journalist many years ago in the early noughties. I can instantly tell when someone has sent me a cut and paste email as opposed to a real well thought out email where they thought about me and what I'm writing and the newspaper that I was working for. So sending out 500 plus emails is not going to really get you anywhere, unfortunately. It's much more better to target down to 10, 20, maybe 30 newspapers, magazines, TV channels, radio shows, whatever it is that you're doing. But because I'm really target them and make sure each email is different. Now you're probably thinking, well, how do I do that? Well, this is why it's important to be me focused. If you're already reading those periodicals, if you're already watching those shows, if you're listening to those podcasts, those radio shows, you already know about those people. And that shows. Some of the first media that I got, I sent an email saying, I loved it when you interviewed so-and-so, or I really enjoyed when you did this feature on. And instantly that person, you're, wow, this is a fan. This isn't someone who sent me a cut and paste job. This is someone who actually listens to my show or someone who reads what I write. That goes a long way. We all have egos. Journalists have egos. TV producers have egos. We all have egos. And having someone say, hey, I love your work, because that goes a long way. But you can only do that if you genuinely watch something. I'm not now saying you now need to go and force yourself to listen to a load of podcasts that you never listened to before, to go and watch TV shows that you've never watched before. It's too overwhelming. You're trying to run a business. You can't, where do you find the time to do all that? That is why it's important to be me focused. That's the first letter, M, me focused. Remember that, okay? The A for become attractive to the media. Now, if you're an author, you're already a little bit more attracted to the media. There's something about being an author that instantly makes people think, all kinds of people, but certainly people in the media, they think, okay, this person's serious. To actually take time, write a book, have it created, actually publish it, that takes time. Most people don't have the attention to do that. So the fact that you're already an author, that makes you attractive. But there's more things that you could be doing. So for example, this is something that a wonderful friend of mine, Katrina Fox, taught me, and something that I use and a lot of my clients use, and it's called newsjacking. It's basically a portmanteau of news and hijacking. And what you're essentially doing is keeping an eye out on the news. And then when a story hits, if there is something that you're doing, your mission, your values, your business is doing, that kind of piggybacks on it, then that is a wonderful way of getting your name and your brand out there. So let me give you an example. Sometimes it's difficult to think of this unless I give you an example to follow. So say, for example, you are, I'm just trying to think of an idea. Say you're a nutritional coach. So say you help people with their nutrition, you create sort of diet plans for them, etc., etc. So then something has just broken on the news. There's maybe a popular medication that was being given to type 2 diabetics. They've just recalled it. They've recalled this medication because it's actually causing more harm than good. So that's already in the news. You could now hijack that piece of news. You can see, well, which journalists have written about this. Contact those journalists, say, love the feature that you did about this medication. I'm a nutritional therapist, coach, whatever you are. And what I do is show holistic ways of dealing with aging and diseases that come through aging, such as type 2 diabetes. I've written an article. Would you like to use it? A lot of these, please remember, and this, by the way, hasn't changed in 20 years. It was no more than 20 years ago when I was a journalist. And yet I still have journalist friends, and they tell me the pressures are exactly the same. Nothing has changed in that regard. They're still under pressure when it comes to content. In fact, probably more so now. We have this need for 24/7 news now. So they put a feature out. They're not resting. They're already thinking, oh my God, what am I going to write next? To be able to write a follow-on piece on something they've already written, and you've done most of the work for them, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've just written this article. Now I've got the next article, and I didn't really have to do much for it because this person's approached me, and I can do a follow-on article of the article that I've already written. Can you see how this works? So it's you jumping on news and then contacting that particular journalist, that particular radio producer, TV producer, and say, hey, I've got a follow-on piece. So you did about this, and I'm going to talk to you about this. So as a nutritional therapist, you can say there are holistic ways. There are ways that you can use food so you don't have to be on medication for type 2 diabetes. For example, that was just, I'm not saying that's a good idea, by the way. I literally just thought on the spot there while I'm walking on my dog. So I hope you're proud of me that I'm able to think. See what I mean? I do think better when I'm on my treadmill. But yeah, think of how you can become attracted to the media. This is what I mean by attractive. A lot of people think that just because they've got this fabulous business, that in itself is news. That's not news, okay? News has to be something that's just happened. Now, definitely as an author, especially if you're about to launch a book and you haven't launched it, that could be news. You're launching a book. That's news. That's not something that happens every day. But that's only once. You can only do that once. If you want to then carry on getting media again and again, really keep an eye on what's happening in the news, and then see if you can attach your brand, your business, your cause, your mission, and do follow-on pieces for them. That works incredibly well. And it means that you're attractive to the media because you're topical. You're making sure you understand what is newsworthy. And journalists, TV producers, radio producers, they really appreciate someone who understands that. They're sick to death. I used to get this back in the noughties, but the people get it even more now from what I've been told. They're sick to death of people contacting them with a press release, which is essentially they just want advertising for their business. Now, here's a secret. That is what you're wanting. When you're newsjacking, that is what you want. You want eyeballs on what you're doing. But it can't be done in such an obvious way. It's got to be a bit of a Trojan horse. That's what you got to think about it. You've got to be giving value, something that's newsworthy. And then underneath that, yes, people get to hear about you. They get to hear about your brand, your business, your mission. That's wonderful. But if it's just out there, hey, I just want you to put my business in the newspaper, you know what they're going to do? This is what I did. I was instantly just send those people. It's like, okay, you've got the wrong department. I'm putting you through to the ad department now. And before they even said anything, I was literally transferred them through to the ad department. I couldn't be bothered to speak to them because I just thought, you're wasting my time. I can't write anything about this because this isn't news. I'd be fired. My editor would fire me. You basically want a free advert. Go to the ad department and put your hand in your pocket and pay for the privilege, you know? So you've got to think in those terms, become attractive by becoming newsworthy. Okay, so C from machine is keep your cool. This one is really important. Most people don't think it's important, but it's really important because one of my clients made herself very ill after launching a book, and then she felt that she had to say yes to every single interview, podcast, anything within the first 3 months, because she'd heard that once you launch a book, you have about 3 months to make hay while the sun shines, and then it all disappears. This is the problem with lies, because they're based on half-truths. There is an element of truth there. Once you launch a book, it is considered, in the media anyway, it's considered new for about 3 months. So she was right there. However, first of all, it's not worth you losing your health over. Secondly, what didn't do, this is what I mean by all of this works together. She missed the first step. She wasn't thinking me focused. She just went out to loads of people, anybody and everybody. That's why she was overwhelmed. But the final thing is, there's no such thing as, it's understanding step 2, attractive. You can be a published author. You could have published your book years ago, and yet the book, you can still push the media so long as you think of newsworthy ideas. So say, let's go back to that nutritional therapist. Say that this person published their book 3 years ago, but only now today a story's broke about a medication that's been recalled. It was for people with type 2 diabetes, but it's actually causing them even more harm than good. There's nothing wrong with the fact that this person published their book 3 years ago. They can still contact that journalist and say, hey, I've got a follow-on story for you. So this is what I do. And I'd love for you to look at this piece I've written about how to manage your type 2 diabetes holistically without using medications. Because as you've seen, some of these medications are actually doing more harm than good. I'm an author of this book. I wrote about this 3 years ago. Can you see how it doesn't really matter that it's been 3 years since you published your book? So this is what I mean by keep you cool. Please don't do what this client of mine did. She ended up in hospital for 2 days with a nervous breakdown. That's only one of my clients ever. I've published nearly 50 people now. So thank God only one of my authors went that crazy when it comes to media attention. But please don't do that. Keep your cool. Another great tip is, if you really want to build momentum for your book again, I'm sure within a year or two, you probably need to update your book anyway, especially if you're in a reasonably fast moving industry. There's probably new things that have happened that you want to update in your book. I'm about to publish a third version of my book because new stories have come to light from my clients that I need to put into my book. By the way, for people who don't know, my book is all case studies of what my clients did next after publishing. So I've got a ton more stories that need to go into my book. There's always a reason for you to update your book. And guess what? Once you've updated your book and you publish it again, it's now a new book and you can start all over again. Start in media again. Whatever you do, keep your cool. Don't make yourself ill thinking, oh my God, I need to get as much media attention as possible within the first 3 months of launching a book. H in machine is start close to home. This is a big one. People really, really forget about this, especially the younger you are. I've noticed whenever I have clients who are in my 60s, they're great. They actually get this. But as soon as 50s or younger, people start to forget. The younger you are, the more likely you've had the internet in your life for most of your life. And this is what caused the problem. People completely disregard local media because we live in such a global world now. And I'm guilty of it too. You know, a good friend of mine has recently, in the last year and a half, has got me involved in the Northeast business scene. And I'm starting to mingle with a lot of Northeast business owners and find out what's happening in the Northeast. And shockingly, up until 18 months ago, I didn't have a clue what was happening in my own backyard. I knew more likely what was happening in the business scene in New York, because I've had several clients from New York. I would know what's happening in New York, or I may know what's happening in Sydney. I may know what's happening in LA. and yet I wouldn't know anything that's happening in the northeast of England, because we live in such a global world. When we're on the internet, it really doesn't matter whether you're speaking to someone a mile away from you or whether you're speaking to someone 1,000 miles away from you. It's the same. Which is wonderful, but the downside of it is because we now live in a global world, we think globally. So whenever we think of media, we start thinking of global media that we need to go after. Start close to home. Have a look at what are the regional players you've got around you. Newspapers, magazines, TV channels, radio channels. Think of the local players. Those people are starved for content. They're really feeling the brunt of a global world now. How we now got global, our thinking, I should say, is global now. And we don't even think about local anymore. So they are starved for content. They're they're going to get an easy yes from them. Whereas if you go to a national paper or an international TV channel, unless you're already built a presence, you're probably going to get a no from them. You're going to get a yes from these local people. And first of all, I'm just going to counter something that people say. It's like, well, what's the point in going to a local TV channel? About 5 people watch it. Like, what's the point? It's not about how many people actually watch that TV show or actually open that local rag. That's not what it's about. It's about building your presence. Now, this is something that I want you guys to do if you haven't already. I want you to create a press room or a media room, as I call it, or it doesn't really matter what you can just call it, press room, media room, or press articles, or whatever you want to call it. You just create this. In fact, what I'll do, I think I've got this up. Let me actually show you this live so you can see how it works. So this is my media room. Most of my clients have this. So it just sits, as you can see, it just sits in one of the tabs of my website. But what it does is it lists or shows some visual images of some of the articles that have been written about me. I've also got this, like a slider showing various podcasts and radio shows and TV shows that I've been on. I've got this, actually needs updating. I've got about 10 more that need to go on here, but I'll get one of my sisters to do it. And then it's got links to all of the articles and podcasts and shows that I've been on. And then it's got my bio. This is what I mean about credibility, okay? It really, really doesn't matter if you've been on a tiny show that's been downloaded 50 times, or you've been featured in a local rag that only has a circulation of about 1,000 people. It doesn't matter. When you build this out, it makes you look credible to all people. It makes you look credible to potential customers or clients. It makes you look credible when you start going after the bigger players. Once you start wanting to go after the national papers or national TV shows or whatever it is, they can come, you can send them this and be like, okay, this person has done a few things. Can you see how that just gives them a little bit of confidence, I guess, that, you know, you're not just completely wet behind the ears. That's what you're doing. So please, whatever you do, let me just go back to here. What you're not doing is thinking, oh, well, what's the point of going after a local TV show? Only 5 people watch it. I don't care. I don't care if only 5 people are watching it. Luke didn't. So let me show you Luke. This is Luke, and he's in this local, but actually this is a decent sized local paper as well. So this actually does have a reasonable circulation. But imagine it didn't. Imagine it was a tiny local rag that had under 1,000 people reading it. It does not matter. Look how cool he looks. He's in the paper. He put that all over his social media. He's got a media room as well. It's on his media room. So when he's now reaching out to journalists on a national scale, they go to his media room. He's like, wow, he's already been featured locally. Cool. He knows what he's doing. That's what you're doing. It's stop focusing. So I think some people just focus on reach. So a local paper only has a reach of 1,000 people. What's the point? A radio show is only listened to 500 people. What's the point? It's not about that. It's about building out your media room, your press room, showing your credibility. And then you, as I said, it's a machine. That's why I built it that. And that's why you've got the cogs. That wasn't my idea, by the way. I'm not very good graphically. It was my wonderful designer. And he kind of was like, when he was talking about machines, he was like, I'm going to do them as cogs in a machine. I thought that's a brilliant idea. But that's essentially what it is. You're building a machine. And this is one of the key tenets of the machine. Start close to home. Think of your local players. You're going to get an easy yes from them. It's going to build your confidence as well. If you're going to fail.
What are you doing?
Oh, Terry, I'm just going to put you on mute, my love, just in case you.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, my darling. So yeah, you're going to get an easy yes from them, and also if you're going to make a mistake, say you die on your feet and you say something stupid, wouldn't you rather do it to 1,000 people rather than millions of people? So you can actually start getting really good on a local level, build up your media room, build up your authority and credibility, and then once you've got the confidence, start going to bigger players. So H is for home. Start close to home. Okay. Step 5, I from machine is internet. Now, I would say if you're over the age of 50, you can ignore this because you definitely won't ignore. Sorry, the other way around, I should say. Anyone under the age of 50, actually, definitely under the age of 50, you can ignore this because you won't ignore the internet because you grew up with it. What I tend to find with some people who are over 50, or I would say 45 or maybe 50 older, so certainly my age bracket, we seem to forget the internet. We're so focused on radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, because we grew up with that. We forget that the internet has sometimes bigger audiences. There are podcasts now that have far more downloads or more people listening to them than radio shows. There's YouTube channels that have more viewers than major network TV channels. Yeah. There's blogs out there that actually have more hits per month, more people reading their content than major newspapers. So keep that in mind. Don't just stick with traditional media. Look at all of the new media out there. I shouldn't even call it new media now because it's been around for over 20 years. But yes, keep an eye on that. Like I said, if you're under the age of 45, 50, you can ignore this because you won't ignore the internet at all. Chances are you grew up with it. But if you're older, sometimes it's easy to forget the internet. I've worked with some clients and I said, okay, so have you looked at podcasts? Oh, I'm not really bothered about podcasts. Why not? You do realize that more people listen to podcasts now than radio shows. And they've been surprised, like, really? Are they? Yes, they are. You need to look at podcasts in your field of expertise and reach out to those people as well. So don't ignore the internet. N in machine is give notice to media outlets. This is a big one, especially as a former journalist. This used to drive me nuts. People who'd contact me the week before to say, hey, their book is out, or they're launching this new initiative in their business a week before, a few days before, and they're expecting me to just like be able to plonk them into the publication. That's not how it works. When you're a content creator of any kind, literally your bread and butter is your content. It means that you have your content already mapped out easily a month in advance, in some cases 2 or 3 months in advance. Please respect these content creators, whatever they are, whether they're journalists, whether they're bloggers, whether they're podcasters, whatever it is that, TV producers, whatever they are, please respect them. Nothing puts their nose out of joint more than someone who literally says, hey, can you please put me in your whatever it is next week or in 3 days' time? It just really puts their nose out because it makes them feel that you think they're just sat there doing nothing, waiting for news to just come into them, and then they're just putting it into their publications or on their shows. That's not what's happening. These people are doing a very difficult job. It's something that I enjoyed doing in my early 20s, and I got out of it when I was in my mid-20s. That was me done. It was like, and the people who keep doing it for the rest of their lives, I mean, if I had a hat, I would take it off to them because it's hard work. It's like this constant treadmill of making sure you have high quality content. It's really, really tough. And when someone contacts them and just expects them to just put their stuff into their publications or shows, it shows a real disrespect for their profession. So please, whatever you do, give notice to the media. If you're in terms of books, if you're launching a book, I would say at least 6 to 8 weeks in advance, ideally even 3 months. So get in touch with them and actually say, hey, this book is coming out. I'd love to do. And also the wonderful thing is it means you've got more of a chance to to get through to them, because remember, they're very busy, and build up a bit of a relationship with them before your book launches anyway, which can only mean good things for whatever they're writing about you or whatever they're producing about you. So ideally 3 months you want to give people notice. Now, please be aware that is when you're the news. What I talked before about newsjacking, that's different. That is more, think of that as more reactive. Something happens and then you're piggybacking on it. That's different. I'm talking about when it's something about you. You've launched a new business, you've launched a new initiative, you've just partnered with a great charity, for example. That you want to give the media enough notice to cover it. Don't just throw it into their lap, because chances are not only will they just not reply to you, their noses may be out of joint, which means in future, even when you've got something good, they may say no. So you want to really build those relationships on a level of respect with these content producers. Final step, the E in Machine, is for endorsements. This is a biggie. This is something that I was guilty of not getting enough of a couple of years ago, and also not understanding the endorsements that I can get. So I also endorsements were basically, well, the two typical places people think of endorsements are as a business owner, your clients or customers, you get endorsements from them. And if you've written a book, there'll be people who've reviewed your book. And that's it. Those are the places you get endorsements. Wrong. I learned from a wonderful client of mine who taught me, it's like, well, he said, well, why aren't you getting endorsements from the people who've interviewed you? I said, what do you mean? Why would I ask for endorsements of people who've interviewed you? It's like, well, if you've been interviewed by a journalist or a podcaster and they thought you were a great guest, why would you not get them to write a small testimonial saying that you were a great guest? And you know, when a light bulb goes off in your head, and like, oh my God, I never thought of that. I could ask people who have, and I thought, oh my God, there's loads of people that I can get a testimonial from. It doesn't have to be just your clients and customers and the people who've read your book. There's so many people. And so now what I do is whenever I do a show, so say I do a live with somebody or a podcast or I do a radio show or anything like that, I will, after it's over, I would then say, was that okay? Are you happy with that? Because obviously, remember, that's the most important thing. You might think that you getting onto that show or having an article written about you, it's about you. It's not actually. It's actually about the content creator. That's their livelihood. So I always ask, are you happy with that? Is there something more you need from it? I show them through my words that I care about their career, their job. It's not just about what I can get. It's not me, not just about what I can get for my business and my brand and my visibility. I care about that content creator. Are you happy with that? Is there anything more you need from me? And if they then say, no, that was great. Thank you, Mitali. That was really good. That was so interesting. Would you mind if you just, I make it very easy for them. I don't even get them to go away and write something, because you know what people are like. They'll say, oh, they'll do it. And then they get really busy, don't they? I just say, if they're on Zoom like this, I actually say, well, would it be okay if you just said a few words about how you felt about interviewing me? No, yeah, cool. And then we've got that as a recording. So would you mind if I use that as a recording? Or you can even get it transcribed and just have the words into a testimonial. And then what I do is I send them that and say, are you happy with this? And if they reply going, yeah, absolutely happy with that, you've got a testimonial now from a journalist or from a podcast host, from a TV producer. Do you think that's going to help the next content creator say yes to you? Of course it will. So think about getting endorsements. Yes, by all means, get endorsements for your clients and customers as well. And if you've got a book out there, by all means, get endorsements, reviews from people who've read your book. But there's so many other places you could be getting endorsements that really, really help. Something else I've started doing in the last year or so, when I'm networking, so I go to a lot of online and offline networking events. And then I usually help people out with certain things for free, just, in networking. And they'll ask me a question regarding, oh, how should I deal with this? And I say, okay, well, in my experience, this works best. We don't even think of then saying, hey, would you mind just writing a couple of words, a few words, just saying that I really helped you out with this situation. We've got to get a little bit less humble. We need to ask for these things. There's people out there who think you're the bee's knees, and yet they've never written a single word or recorded themselves saying how awesome they think you are. You need to go and ask and say, would you mind doing this? Would you mind just recording a few words? Would you mind putting a few words down on paper? Ask them for it. It doesn't have to be limited to just your customers and your clients. It can be anyone that you impact positively, and then keep them. I've got folders of endorsements, and I've even categorized them. I've got clients, I've got media, I've got book reviews, I've categorized them. And it just means if anyone needs it for anything, I can instantly just go to my folders and give them endorsements. That really helps and smooths the process to people saying yes to you, because they just see, wow, all these people are saying this person's awesome. I need them on my show. I should write about them, etc., etc. Okay. Let me give you an example of someone who really did use the Media Machine to incredible effect. I think a couple of you may even know her. So Sandra Namoto, awesome lady based in Vancouver in Canada, who really did use the Media Machine. And in a year of using the Media Machine, so this is her on national TV in Canada. But it's not like she launched a book and then next day she was on national TV. Oh no, that's not what happened. She actually put the Media Machine into action for nearly a year previously before she achieved this. And this is what I mean. Once you build this, it becomes a machine that just carries on. So first of all, she focused on herself. She's a plant-based writer. She's a copywriter working for plant-based businesses. So there's a number of and journals and show podcasts. She was me focused about how active to the media. She understands it's not just about promoting herself and her book and her business, but it's all about latching on to what's newsworthy. She kept her cool. She didn't go crazy. She thought of it. She was in the long game rather than the short game. She focused close to home. She looked at Vancouver and she looked at all the media outlets in Vancouver and started there first rather than going nationally all of Canada. She absolutely, well, she's a young lady. I think she's only in her early 30s. So therefore she absolutely did not forget the internet. She's very respectful of content creators. She gives tons of notice and she always asks for endorsements. By doing all of this within a year, she ended up on, this is the equivalent of Good Morning UK. And in the UK, we have a show like This Morning, which goes out nationally to everyone. This is the news show in the morning in Canada. And she was there talking about veganuary. So again, this is, as you can see, this is about her being attractive to the media. Yeah. So this was in January. And they're talking about veganuary, which has now become a big thing in Canada as well as the UK. It seems to be growing into different countries now. And this is what I talked about earlier. This is her newsjacking. She got in touch with a TV producer and said, hey, I see that you're doing a few shows on veganuary. Well, this is what I do. I actually have written a book regarding vegan marketing success stories and how vegan businesses are marketing themselves during veganuary. And then the TV producer said, cool, you can come in and let's do an interview with you. So this is a perfect example of newsjacking. She wasn't on the show talking about her book, even though her book is there. You can see on the left-hand side. So her book is right there. But that wasn't why she got booked on the show to come and just talk about her book. She got booked on the show because she newsjacked the original story, which is veganuary has arrived in Canada. See how clever that is? But this can only happen when you implement the Media Machine. Okay, so as I said before, you will get all of this plus a ton more, all of the tips I've given you. You will get this in a workbook tomorrow. So let me come out of this and see what your thoughts are. Hello. Oh, welcome. We've got some more people who come in. Hello, Michael. Hello, Terry. Lovely to see you guys. Okay, so let me just quickly go into the chat and see what I've covered. So Robin says, love to know anything I can about getting to. Has that helped you, Robin? Has that given you more of an idea of the things that you can start implementing? So definitely, I would say start close to home. That's really the big one, and focus on you. What do you read? What publications? What radio shows? And really focus on those people first.
I don't read a lot of like newspapers and articles.
Okay.
Because there aren't really any for what I do. Specifically, there are on a very general, in a general way, of course, because well-being, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I did send out a press release to some local papers and a radio station as well. I tried to be quite specific to the people and not
Yeah.
just send a blanket email. And it wasn't to that many. It was only about 3 publications and 1 radio. Didn't really get me anywhere. I phoned them, I emailed them, but I haven't heard back. So I think that building the relationship and being more tailored, but because I don't have time to listen to the radio, I only listen to the radio when I'm in the car and I don't go anywhere really these days.
Yeah, that is a difficult thing. It is. And what I don't want you to do is like go and start listening to all these shows, because like, where do you find the time? Do you know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. That's why I say if you genuinely don't listen, then it's probably not. If
I do when I'm in the car, but like
yeah,
I said, that's not very often. But I've been listening to some podcasts and I've contacted podcast people.
that's what I was just about to say, because podcasts are more when you've got time, you actually listen to them. So yeah, it's focus on what you do rather than what you don't do. So if there isn't much in the way of periodicals and magazines and newspapers, just leave that for now. Focus on what you do, and then that way it's like, for me, to when I reach out to a podcast host and tell them, oh my god, I love this episode that you did with it, I didn't specifically take time out to listen to that podcast to write that email. I was listening to the podcast anyway because I'm a fan, and so you want to focus on those, because we're all extremely busy. What I don't want to do is now give you like extra homework to go and start listening to a ton of stuff or reading a ton of stuff that you weren't doing already. It's all about what you're already doing and leveraging that.
I haven't been able to get anywhere just contacting people, cold contacting them, even
Yeah.
when I've done that. But it's when I've been in like a Facebook challenge or something and I've met people that way. So I've
Yeah.
already started to know them. So I think it is that building. And Matchmaker, thank you, Terry. I'm
Yeah, I've
already
just
part
seen
of
that.
that.
Thank you, Terry.
But I'm trying to focus on local, and there's not much on Matchmaker that's UK, that's well-being based that I've found. Most of them are American, and I have contacted and been on some, but I want to focus locally more.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes. Keep at it. I mean, that's the thing with any kind of machine. Think of it like one of those old lever kind of machines. It's really hard getting it going in the beginning, but the more you do it, it just gets faster and easier and easier. And then you get to Sandra's stage where people just approach her now. She doesn't really have to do much. But yeah, she put a lot of legwork in the beginning. She really, really pushed it. So anybody this is another thing, a lot of people just kind of assume when they see someone in the media that they've just got it lucky. It's like, no, it's like, I remember a mentor of mine gave me a really good analogy. He says, whenever he sees anyone successful, what he's seeing is a swan. So, you see a swan and they're just like gracefully sliding down a lake. But if you actually looked underneath the water, they're paddling furiously. That's essentially what's going on here. You're seeing this person, it's like, but what that person has done and continues to do is put a lot of hard work. You're just not seeing it. You're just seeing this elegance. So really just keep at it, start building the foundation. Have you created a media room?
I haven't done it as specifically as that, which is something I've got on my list to do, but I have got the articles, the podcasts I've been on,
Excellent.
I've got everything, just
And
various
have
different
you got
places.
testimonials from those people?
Not from them, no, from others.
That could be a point to do, maybe going back to them. It's ideally you want to do it because I find that once it's already been published and been some time, but there's still nothing to stop. What's the worst they can say, Robin? No, I doubt they will. So I would still go back to all of those people that have interviewed you and get them to give you a testimonial. Just say a few words of like how awesome you were as a guest or whatever it is that you did with them. But get into a habit that in the future you ask them there and then. I always preface it, what are you happy with that? Is there anything more you needed from me? And if they say, no, that was fantastic, Natalia, that was really good, that was really informative, thank you. I tend to find, especially with podcast hosts and live shows, they get so tired of people where it's like trying to get blood out of a water. So someone who just freely talks and they're not having to prod alive, they're just so happy. At that moment when they said, thank you, that was really, really good, I really enjoyed that. At that moment, you say, can you just give me a few words? And you can either write it down or just hit record on your Zoom so you've got them saying it. That's the perfect time to get it. But don't let that stop you from going back to all of the people who have interviewed you previously and getting a testimonial from them, because that might push a few buttons in the future. You might get more yeses than nos if you can actually say, these are the people that I've already interviewed for, and this is what they said about me. That could work as well. Let me see what else we've got here. Oh, okay, Guy, you said you got a quick question. Go for it. Oh, you still, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Guy.
Okay. Yeah, that was really great. Thank you for that. You've really given me some great ideas because I'm working with a couple of authors right now, and I may end up, I'm likely going to be the one publishing their books. And I was sort of not going to really start booking that publicity until closer to the time. And I realize now I need to get some news releases and contacts out with these people ahead of time. I want to make absolutely sure I get a copy of what you've recorded from today, if just in case, because I don't know if I got it last time.
Oh, you should have, because basically everybody, attendees and non-attendees, get a link
Yeah.
to the replay
So
the next day.
is there any email that you can give me that I can follow up if there's any problem?
Yeah, you just email me. If you email me, so let me just put this into the chat. And then Joycey's here. That's one of my awesome assistants. She will make sure you get it. But yeah, let me just quickly check, by the way, because you should be getting it. Basically, the way it works is automatically everyone registered gets an email with the link to the replay, whether they attend or they don't. The only difference is the attendees, so all of you lovely people will also get the workbook, because that is my thanks for, so I'm not speaking to myself, which, as I said before, is pretty boring. So the fact that you were good enough to turn up live, you guys get a workbook that covers everything that we discussed and a lot more that I'm not able to cover. But the replay should go out to everybody, even people who don't attend. So let me just see, what's your email address?
It's it's GCrit, so GCRIT at protonmail.com. I mean, I'm sure it's going to come. I just wanted to make absolutely sure that I follow up.
Absolutely. So let me just have a look.
I just registered this morning, so I don't know if that shows up in your list.
Yes, it does. And you have been receiving emails. You have opened a few of them, but you haven't opened all of them. So I wonder if some of them are getting stuck in your spam filter, possibly.
Yeah,
so
I'll go back. I'll go back and check. Yeah, thank you very
We're
much.
definitely sending them. And you are opening them, but there are some that are not open. So there's like 50% that are open, 50% that aren't. So I wonder if some of them might be getting stuck. But if you don't get it, please just reach out and we'll figure out. You know what technology's like. I love it when it works, annoying when it doesn't. So maybe there's some spam filter issue and not all of that.
That's probably it. Okay, thank you very much.
Not a problem. Michael says, I haven't been on many podcasts. Would it help to record myself in a brief video commercial talking about topics, showing how look? You could do that. Yes, absolutely. I'll be honest with you. If someone sent me a video, I mean, I am going back 20 years now. And so people didn't have the ability to just create a video the way they do now. But I would wonder whether I would have time to really look through a video and make sure. So I don't know if you could try sending out. I will say, give everything a go, Michael. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. You're actually no worse off than where you were already. So why not give it a go? I would think thinking as a busy journalist 20 years ago, would I have had time to review people's videos? Probably not. I would think Terry's idea of maybe putting it on your website, putting it on a media room or a press room, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, that's made me think maybe I should put a video on my media room. Oh, I should actually do that if you think about it. That's actually a good idea. Maybe I need to do that. So I think definitely that is a good idea. And then try sending out and see what works. But I think, thinking as a journalist from 20 years ago, and I believe it's nothing much in this aspect has changed, is that people are looking for things that are newsworthy. So you actually attaching yourself to something that's just happened, that will actually hold more weight than whether you know, you send a video in or that sort of thing. I see the thinking behind it, because then it can show that you're someone who's able to hold their own and talk, and it's not like getting, you know, blood out of water, sorry, blood out of a stone or anything like that. But I just wonder how many people would actually watch it, unless specifically on newsjacking or doing something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of posting it on my website or my media kit or something, so that it's not
That's perfect.
so it's not all print material, that it's like, at least at least I'm willing to sit in front of a camera, you know. So.
Exactly, and that really helps. And also, I mean, I don't know how interested you are in the world of AI that's been blowing up these last few years, but there's some fantastic software out there now. I've been playing with some of them, where you can now create your own show reel, and it's, you know, something that used to cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for a video producer to put together. You can now, either you or just get an assistant who doesn't, you know, who doesn't charge much, and you can put together these show reels now with music in the background, and you can even have voiceovers, so AI voiceovers. They sound like human, they don't sound like robotic at all, but you can even have AI voiceover, so it just adds more interest. So instead of just you speaking to the camera, you can speak for some of it, but then you have another voiceover talking about you in the third person about what you've done. There's so many things you can do. So a really good one that I'm looking at, what's the name of it? It's just escaped my mind. Let me just see if I can find it. I can recommend it, but I found it quite easy to use, bearing in mind that I'm not the most technical person in the world. So if I find it easy to use, I'm willing to bet most people will be able to find it easy to use. Let me just see. Pictory. So it's Pictori, Pictory. There's others. I'm not saying that's the best, but that's the one I've been playing with the most. Sorry, it's with a Y, Pictory, Pictory at the end, not I. Pictory. That's the one I've been playing with a lot, and I seem to be getting quite good results. So that's something you can do. Yeah, it just makes your media page more alive and interesting. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Oh, Terry's saying I use. Oh, that's an interesting. I've tried Picture. I think Opus is better. I'll have a look at Opus then. I've not checked out Opus yet, so I'll have a look at that, Terry. Thank you for that. So that could be another one you look at, Michael. But yeah, that's a really good idea. Putting it on a media page is a really good idea. Okay, so any final questions or thoughts? I've stunned you all into silence. Well, hopefully you got what you needed from this. So the main thing to remember here is, you know, what's that all saying, you know, about the tortoise and the hare? It really is all about being the tortoise here and not the hare. You know, a lot of people just like, oh, I want to be straight on national papers. I want to be that. It can happen sometimes, but it's more likely to happen if you've built something up and built momentum. And also the most important thing that I really want to remember, create that media room. That's what it's really about. I've had people who've been in national papers and have been quite disappointed regarding, they thought just being in the national papers, they'll get suddenly this influx of leads. I said it doesn't really happen, because people, even if they see you in something, you know, a big broadsheet, they'll go, oh yeah, that seems pretty cool. But they're usually in the middle of doing something else. They don't really sit there and think, oh, I really need to. And then they forget, they get on with their lives and they forget to contact you or reach out to you. So I've even had people who have been able to get national exposure, and they didn't really get as many leads as they thought they would. That's actually not what it's about. It's about using where you do go and creating this presence about you, your brand, your cause, your mission that is credible. That's what it's all about. And that can only happen if you create a media room or a press room that people can see and go, okay, wow, this person's serious. I use my media room for everything. If I want to speak on a stage, I'll send them a copy of my book, because that also adds to credibility. And then I'll send them a link to my media room. Just say, look, this is all the stuff that I've done. And that instantly makes them think, okay, cool, this person knows what they're talking about. They're not wet behind the ears. Let's book her. So that's what it's all about. It's not really all about just getting into the nationals and suddenly your phone's going to ring off the hook. That rarely happens anyway. I hope that's been really good. I hope you got what you
Mhm.
needed from this. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you at a future forum. Bye for now. Have a good rest of the week. Bye, guys. Bye. Thank you, Stanley. Bye.
Thanks, Matali.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Brilliant.